Duke Nukem 3D was a game with a range of third-party add-ons, due to including the excellent build editor, but not all of them are fondly remembered, such as the one we're going to look at today. Now, is it justified? Let's find out as we check out Duke Zone 2. And welcome to Goldfish on Games. While the original Duke Zone was mostly a collection of 500 user-made maps, this follow-up included 3 brand new episodes made by Simply Silly Software, with Wizards Works publishing it in 1997. Contained on the CD is a basic menu for selecting the episode as well as the difficulty level, if you want to run this with the original DOS version of Duke Nukem anyway, or you can just copy the files over and use eDuke32, which I will be using here as it does make things a little bit easier. But if you go down that route, please try and look up the fan patches that fixes up the names as well as a few bugs.
Let's rock.
So let's jump into the first episode, Arctic Assault, which dumps us in a helicopter with just one way out. And a very long fall. Just be sure to try and aim yourself for that small patch of water. I'd have hated to have played this map with just keyboard aiming. It's quite the start. But very quickly you'll find yourself in a very nasty room, with floors that will hurt you, sentries trying to slow you down, and then a room full of trip bombs just to top it off. And all of this is so we can flip a switch that will let us get outside. And out here, they're doing some cool and interesting tricks with the build engine, as we have these walkways that you can move under and later walk over. There's even this whole underwater section that you don't need to visit, but it does have some secrets. And it shows that they put a lot of effort into these maps. And the next one is also a good example of this, as it's not the largest level we'll ever see, as it's really just this one big room, but there are these 2 trains that are travelling around at speed. And if you want to get anywhere with this one, you're going to have to get onto those trains, all while dealing with the baddies that are littered around the map. Oh, and if you get the timing wrong, those trains will kill you. Even using the jetpack isn't an easy win. And you will consider using it, as getting into the cabs is the main goal of this level, as it contains the keys that you will need to open up the exit. It's a fun and inventive level that shows a creative side that we don't always get to see, even if they ramp up the difficulty level with the number of baddies that we have to take on. And they have this habit of spawning in even more with every action that you take, so you're rarely left alone for any length of time. We get a very Duke 3D level next, as it's one of those real world style locations that is larger and more intricate than what we've seen so far, as we get this outside area with multiple buildings that includes a police station with one-way glass, a cinema with snacks and a single screen, and 2 sets of stairs that I think break the laws of physics and go through each other. And there's something that I never thought I'd say on this channel, but it looks like there could be a bordello. This is a Duke Nukem game, I guess. You should get used to seeing the mini-bosses, as we get a few here, and they start to show up with more regularity on the other maps from this point onwards. This collection also includes secret levels. In theory, 2 for each episode to make up the 7 maps that were mentioned on the box. But they forgot to add a trigger in for one of them in the first episode, so really we just have one, and that's for the map called Quickie. But it's an interesting map that once again shows a creative side to the designers, even if it does live up to its name if you know what you're doing. But first time out, it might take you a while. as it feels like they like to hide the path to the exit in dark corners or through routes that you think could just be a secret. The designers also seem to have a bit of a problem with lighting, as a number of the levels are way too dark. I do like the next map as it's based around rooftops, with you having to do running jumps from one to the other, with a long fall being your reward if you miss. You then have to use lifts and other routes to try and get up even higher to then jump onto the next set of roofs. It's a great level, even if it might be linear. As the keys that you collect are only really used at the very end, and really there's just one route through. Well, unless you use the jetpack, but that thing breaks so many levels we can't really bring it up. And here they really wanted to ramp up the difficulty, as there are a lot of assault commanders, as well as sentry drones. And this being the last map of the episode, well, there had to be a boss fight at the end. Even if it does feel like it got stuck in that small room and you can just run around with ease shooting at it. On top of the brand new levels, this package also included the original Juke Zone 1, which consisted of what they called 500 user-created levels. That basically means they downloaded 500 maps from the early internet. Now we'll check out a few of those later on, but first I want to take a quick look at the other items that they included in Juke Zone. The first of which is a DOS-based front end that would let you customize your game as well as help you set up the various maps that it included. But it also contained a whole series of help files to help you learn how to use the build editor. It also supported the loading of mods, and they even included a few on the CD. Now most of these are just con files that will replace, and I do mean replace, the original files that came with the game, so you better back them up before you go messing around with it, and these can do new and interesting things. And they have some highly creative names like Cool Mods, Freeze Die, and Gore. And you can guess at some of the effects that these will have, but others you'll have to just check them out. Like it might give you lots of health. It might have the enemies just randomly die if you look at them. They might possibly throw lots of gore when they die, or make it rain money. These, much like the maps, were created by the fans, rather than made specifically for Juke Zone, and as such, some of them will fail to load, as there are errors in the scripts, which a more modern and stricter engine might not like. They can also be a little bit incompatible with the different versions of the game, so you might have to use the original Duke Nukem 3D or the Plutonia pack. Let's return to Juke Zone 2 and Episode 2, Alien Abbey, that opens up with a graveyard, and a decent number of baddies to deal with right away. There are times in this add-on that it almost feels like a serious Sam game, if a particularly dark one, so I guess more Painkiller? Either way, there are a few oddities in this map, like this fake floor that will kill you if you try and walk on it, so you have to jump over it to try and get into the doorways, and this bit that, well, could be seen as being broken, as you have to jump through this vent to try and get to the exit. But you can't jump up to it directly, you just don't have the height. So instead, you have to jump off the bins. That means that if you've destroyed them, either in a firefight or if you wanted to get the goodies that were inside, then you're going to have to reload or restart the level. Which is a bit of a shame, as it's otherwise a very nice map. But after the graveyard, we enter the Abbey. It's almost like they planned this. And it's a large, open map with some cool looking areas. And you'll have fights against multiple assault commanders at the same time, and they really like to throw baddies at you, and this is on the Let's Rock difficulty level as well. There's even some nice secrets, including the way to the next secret level to find. But the weird thing is, you don't need to see most of the level, as parts of it are entirely pointless. I think they should have added some switches or done something a little bit more interesting in those areas. And this one also seems to jump style, going between the church look and this futuristic styling. It clashes quite a bit. Even if you do end up back in the Abbey for a big boss fight at the end. Water Slide is one of those levels where they try to build the map around a core idea. The water slide. But they didn't really know what to do with it, as the slide is a bit shorter than you might expect and the rest of the level, well, doesn't really involve it. But it is a nice and open one that you can do in almost any order, as you just need 3 keys to open up the exit. There are some interesting rooms with some cool things going on, you got moving platforms, but I wouldn't say that this is the best of the episode. And neither is the next one, as in many ways it's similar to the last, as it's this big launch pad in the middle of the map, which you'll have to deal with lots of enemies around it. A hell of a lot of enemies around it. Thankfully, there are a number of routes for you to travel around, so it doesn't get too bad. And I enjoyed the basic flow, as once you've taken care of all those enemies, you get to open up this pathway that overlooks the main room, and then you get to use a crane to get over to the other side. But then I got stuck. Seriously stuck. I spent ages running around this map with no idea where to go. And it turned out, this wall is a door. The texture doesn't really indicate it. The only real clue is that it's opposite the door that you entered into this area. And it just happens to have the same texture. And this annoyed me more than anything else in this expansion. If you're gonna have a door, make it look like a door. Even if in some of the earlier maps they had doors that for some reason the textures are upside down, I don't mind that as long as I can tell it's a door. The last map of episode 2 has gone all out with the alien look. And unless you find the hidden scuba gear, you're gonna have a hard time as there's this large underwater maze, where at some point the enemies are upside down. I'm not sure what all that is about. But you'll also want to be down there to try and collect some of the ammo and health, as you're going to need it. As the end goal of this pretty short level is a boss fight, against multiple bosses, because you can't just fight one of them, not in an add-on pack, you've got to ramp everything up. As promised earlier, let's take a quick look at the maps included with Duke Zone 1, and nope, we're not going to be able to cover all 500 of them, or even that many of them, as there's enough that even if we took a random selection, we might end up with all good or all bad levels. So I played a bunch and picked out the ones that I wanted to show off, like Boom. It's a nicely thought out single player map, with lots of explosions, like its name indicates, and some interesting use of props to try and create little environmental details. It's definitely one of the better maps that I tried. But a good chunk of the maps that I've tested were city style ones. Hollywood Holocaust and Red Light District really had an impact on the level designers, and not all of them were designed with single player in mind. Even if they did place a few baddies, if there's no exit, then it's hard to complete. And it feels like some of the ones that I tried out might have been released for testing but weren't quite finished. But of course they were just thrown on the CD anyway. But there's others that have some really nicely designed levels, with lots of detail and rooms to explore, and streets to run around. They even managed to include some subways. Those are the maps that I enjoy playing. And then we get onto maps like this. It's reminding me of something, I'm not sure what. The scale feels a bit wrong at times, and I'm not sure all the secrets are correctly set up, but I just can't place it. I feel like I'm doomed to never work this out. And while I ponder that, let's go for a little skydiving. And a few of these maps, well, they seem to be little more than tutorials, or at least showing you how to use different features of the build engine, which is really handy as you can just open them up and build and check them out, as they weren't compiled like Doom or Quake maps. It's a great way to learn about mapping, but it feels a little cheap putting them into the regular map folder in this collection, as you can't really play it. Let's move on to the final episode, Monkey Shines, that might have one of the most difficult and rapid starts to a level we've seen so far, but multiple pig cops, troopers and captains to deal with as soon as you enter the restaurant, so you better run and try and find a better gun. The bulk of the level though after this is just running back and forth getting keys, but it does have a nice set of explosions, as well as these glass tables. It also has a very fancy stairwell. Someone put a lot of time and effort making that work. And where most levels would end with the juke switch, this one is the only one where you walk over an area to finish it. The levels that make up this episode feel on the shorter side. Yes, there's lots of great explosions and blowing up of rooms, and some more catwalks and areas to explore, but they are simpler if you know what you're doing. This is slightly tempered by the number of baddies that you'll end up facing, more so in the secret levels, where the first one has a basic castle-like arena, and just about every baddie in the game gets featured in great quantities for you to take on.
Yeah, piece of cake. Damn, I'm good.
But the second one is actually more interesting, and I think should have been a regular map, as it's very nicely done, as it's across these split floors, which took me a while to work out how to get up and down, as it turns out those bits in the middle were elevators. But we end up with these escalating set of rooms, with switches that will open up the next. This also requires you going back up and down between the floors, and the amount of atomic healths that you'll find indicates that this won't be easy. But at the same time, it's mostly just standard enemies. But I think I lost count of how many pig cops and assault commanders that I took out in this map, particularly in the end section.
Your ass is different. Yeah. piece of cake.
This also includes something we've not seen in any other map, to the point that I was questioning if this was even a part of the original Duke Nukem 3D release. It's the freeze thrower. Not that I tend to use the freeze or shrinker all that much, as I really don't enjoy having to chase them down to kick them. But it's weird that this secret level is the only one that I found this weapon in. We get what feels like it should have been a secret level in the form of Funhouse, a map that likes to have assault commanders in direct line of sight of you when you start, so you better start avoiding those missiles. This has all the hallmarks of a comedy level. I mean, just check out the auto map of the starting area, as it's all about moving floors, crushers and turrets positioned to really annoy you. It also has a copy of the end key in plain sight. It's just impossible to get without cheats. The actual key that you will collect is hidden behind a series of other doors, and one of the secret exits is hidden behind a toilet stall. Classy. And with that, we're actually on to the final map. I said they were quick. And this has a number of ways that you can go, but will all lead you to the same room. But you better stock up before you get in there, as once you're down in that pit, you are stuck. Well, unless you have the jetpack, obviously. And here, there is a frankly staggering number of assault commanders, whose numbers will increase if you try going for the Devastator. And you know what? Let's get the Shrinker out and show them why Duke Nukem is the best. And then it's just a final boss for you to deal with. And that's it. So is this the best add-on for Duke Nukem? Very much no. But it's also not the worst. I actually had quite a lot of fun with this one, as there's some creative levels and they did some cool things with the engine. And the team that did this went on to make Nuclear Winter, and I think this pack might be much better. Even if they didn't come up with new weapons or updated artwork or baddies. It is just a set of new maps and a few additional props here and there. So if you have a few hours to spare, then you should give this one a go, as I think you might enjoy it, even if you don't return to it later. And with that, I feel we're at the end of this episode. And if there's any add-ons for Duke or any of the 90s FPSs in general that you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments wherever YouTube might have put them this week. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was the Duke of Nukem, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thanks for watching. I hope that if you got this far, you enjoyed it. And if you did, there's a few buttons down below that will let YouTube know that you did so. Or you might want to check out some of my other videos. I've covered a few expansion packs and add-ons in my time on YouTube, and you should find 2 links on the screen right now, so hopefully I'll see you again in another video.